Okay, I think we are ready to begin. It's 2 o'clock. Should we close the door, please? Somebody take the door? Thank you. Okay, welcome everybody. Back to an economics lecture at Fanfest. My name is Eyjólfur Gudmundsson, known as Dr. AOG in the game, and I am the lead economist for EVE Online and work as an economist for CCP. Now, how many of you were here last year? Excellent, so it's a continuing saga. Before I begin, I would like to do a little bit of a research. Think about the main profession that you consider yourself doing in EVE. And if I ask how many of you are, think again, your main profession, how many of you are PvPers? 20% maybe? Once again, main profession. How many are industrialists or manufacturers? Okay, you've found the right lecture. But how many of you consider yourself doing multiple professions? You see, that's my problem. We try to categorize you into various different categories in order to try to understand your behavior. And once again, I have to get the nice floor. It makes it difficult for us because we realize that you guys are doing a lot of things in EVE, not just only one profession, but you all specialize one way or the other. And in the future, I expect that we will be able to do a lot more research on that to present to you. But today, we will simply look at the state of the economy and look at an event that has put a little bit of a dent into the development of the economic situation in 2009. Everything that you see here is done by the Research and Statistics team and in cooperation with a lot of other people within EVE. So remember, it's not just me. There are 9 of us in Research and Statistics. I see 5 of them here. No, 4 of them are there. Mark, I'll steal you later. But 4 of them are here. And we deal with a lot of stuff. The unit was established in 2007. But we do in-game research, economics, socioeconomics, behavior analysis. We do data warehousing and mining. This is actually a project that has taken a really good course over the past few months, and we are hoping that we'll be able to show you some awesome stuff in about a year's time, even more awesome than now. We do subscriber research. We have the Council of Stellar Management, Internal Affairs. We have academic relations, and we also do real-life economic information. So these 9 people, they do a lot of stuff for CCP and for EVE as a whole. So remember, it's not just me. But of course, I take all the blame if something is wrong. And there's a lot of other teams within CCP. And as some of you might have heard over the recent weeks and months, we are hiring. And we have about roughly 400 people at CCP today, and there will be more in the future. If you're interested, go to our website, look at the positions available, and remember one of the key things that is needed at CCP is good teamwork, because everything that we do is done in teams. So, the economy, it's a mess. But we will be looking at the price level changes. We will look at the production and market activity, and I'm just going to give you a very short overview of what is going on, because the most interesting thing that we'll be looking at is the Unholy Rage that some of you might have heard about. So if we begin with the price indices, when we were here about a year ago, that would be somewhere around here, we had been going through a period of deflation in EVE for a relatively long time, or ever since Tech 2 invention was introduced. That would be here in 2006-07, really started to kick in. And I stood here and told you guys that the period of deflation was probably over. And that's why I can show you this now. It actually happened that way. Lucky me. Doesn't happen very often for economists. But the fact of the matter is that we have seen over the past year, since we were here a year ago, a mild inflation with periods of mild deflation in between. So this has been kind of a stable period for EVE in terms of the price levels, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the economy as such has been stable. And yeah, the recent trends have shown a slight increase in prices, and I have to point out to you that we have the numbers for September in here, thanks to this awesome team. They were able to calculate it last night. So yeah, let's give them applause. So this even includes data since last Wednesday. I think we have the latest data. Even though it's a preliminary number, it shows that we are heading into a period of a little bit of deflation, which is representative of what is going on in EVE after an expansion. So consumer price index, stable? Well, not this stable, but has been relatively stable over the time period, but we can recognize three different spikes. We have a spike late last summer, early last fall, which probably was in preparation of the expansion we had in November. Anyone remember the name? Quantum Rise, good. Then we had a period of relative stability until Apocrypha, and I must say that Apocrypha has probably had the biggest impact as an expansion on the economy in EVE. It has been very successful for many reasons, and it has increased activity considerably. And then we have the heading into the third quarter, and we weren't able to update these graphs with the September's number, but they are basically heading a little bit down here. But we had this little spike here in July, and that was interesting because of the fact that we did not have a June expansion. And that spike there is simply called Unholy Rage. And we will be going over that, and you will see that spike jumping up several times throughout this presentation. But let's look at mining as an example. And who doesn't like to mine on a Sunday morning? Okay, who doesn't have to mine on a Sunday morning in order to get some stuff? But of course, we have the Orca here, and that's probably a Hulk, right? Looks like it. Mining on a nice afternoon, chatting while we're ongoing, of course, about what's happening on the mineral market. And here we have the mineral price index, and you can see that follows the same trend as the consumer price index, with a small hump here around Apocrypha, general deflation before and after, and then once again, this interesting hump there in July. And it's once again Unholy Rates. The story is, however, more complex. And I will be telling you a little bit about a change that was done last June, what some of you might find interesting. More on that later. So moving from mineral prices to the PPI, the Primary Production Price Index, which is production of stuff that is needed for other stuff in order to be produced. It shows bigger spikes, but basically the same trend as the other ones. And if you go to the last bit of it, all indications are that we are seeing the regular expansion hangovers that we have after an expansion. So the economy starts such that we expect an expansion. You guys start to hoard stuff. You know, you want to be ready. You don't know what's coming, but you better be ready for it. So you stockpile, basically. Then, once you know what's coming, you head into the production. I'll take that later, thank you. And, yeah, that one too. And once the peak is over, you all go in and produce. You cause some turmoil on the market. And then once the initial effect is over, you see prices start to drop down as you're competing against each other, getting rid of that stock that you stockpiled. So usually this takes about 3 months or so, from the beginning of the announcement of the expansion until the end. And we do expansions per year, every 6 months or so. So there is an economic cycle here within EVE. However, what we saw with Apocrypha was an unusually long tail on the effects of Apocrypha, and it's probably the best measure on how successful it was. And we see the same here for the secondary producer price index. Remember, these are price changes, so we are seeing the percentage increase in prices for that particular index. And it's constantly increasing until late May, June, and then we have this famous Unholy Rage spike here in July. And then the same decline here now in August. And finally, adding the consumer price index back in here, you can see that all 4 indices are following the same pattern, which is an indication, once again, of a regular economic cycle within EVE Online. That is, thank God, luckily, not related to the real-life economic cycle. But, as I said earlier, we are heading into expansion hangovers, and that's the time when you guys start to make your profit, preparing for the next one. So, that's really all I have to say about the price levels and price indices. And now I want to get down into more detailed stuff. This is, of course, some science and industry operation ongoing there, in progress, manufacturing. And here is an example of a bar chart showing the manufacturing jobs, total jobs completed from Q1 2007 and until Q2 2009. We have the September data not yet included in this one. And this is basically the number of jobs, not the total runs, but the number of jobs. And you can see through this basically how EVE is evolving. As we grow in 2007, we see a regular growth in the number of jobs, growing from about 1 million jobs to 2 million jobs by the end of Q4 within the same year. And 2007 was a good growth year for EVE Online. 2008 was still a growth year for EVE Online, but it was slower, and most of the growth happened in Q4. So you can basically see the same thing happening here in terms of the production jobs. As we go along throughout the year, it's relatively stable, kind of an upward trend, and then we have Apocrypha, where everybody basically came back online. And remember, it was not only Apocrypha, there were some other incidents going on in EVE around that time. Some wars and alliance getting lost and so on. Does anyone remember that name? Say again? And the T3, yes. So we are having a lot of new content, we have a lot of interesting events going on, and as soon as that happened, we see the economy react. And that's once again the famous example that EVE really functions as a player-driven economy. It's you guys that are making the decisions out there and affecting the economy as you go along. Now, here is ship production. So this is all production jobs, or manufacturing jobs. Here is ship production. And you can say basically the same trend, relative slow rate here throughout 2008, with a high peak in Apocrypha. And here's an interesting one. These are total battleships. Now, remember, these are the number of jobs, not the runs. We're not showing you how many battleships we produce, but how often a bunch of battleships or a battleship was produced. And you can see that in the Q3 and Q4, it was increasing, but it actually decreased throughout 2008. And what this tells me, and we haven't done the full research on this one, but what this tells me is that throughout the period of 2008, where we had little economic growth, we saw fewer people produce, but still producing similar amounts probably, because we have looked at the battleship numbers, and they are similar. So in short, as the economy was stabilizing, people were getting out of production except those that were probably really, really into it, and they were producing a whole lot of bunch. This is a theory, as I said. I haven't looked into the data completely to be able to do that. But this is the kind of theory that we can do, and kind of theories that we can have in order to try to investigate more and more of this data. And as the team grows, with more experts on my team, I hope to be able to give you more detailed reports as we go along over the next year. And here you have an interesting graph showing all job types. So the green color here is manufacturing. bless you. The red one is invention, and the blue one is copying. So most jobs are, of course, manufacturing, invention, or copying, with the research being the purple and the blue color here, and you don't see it, but it's called reverse engineering. Now, I've heard some people say that, because that Tech 3 isn't taking over the battlefield, Tech 3 must have been a failure. But I think they misunderstood what Tech 3 is all about. Tech 3 is only one type of cruisers for now, strategic cruisers, that you can, yes, put into different combinations for different roles, but they cannot win every battle in Eve, definitely not. And these are resources that are hard to get. You have to organize yourself in order to be able to go into a wormhole and harvest the resources so you can get them. So this is a content for players that are advanced and willing to engage together for a common project. So we expect it to grow slowly and organically. And as Tech 3 increases in the future, it will probably become a bigger part. So far it is evolving definitely the way we were thinking about it, in terms of being adapted slowly and slowly. And did anyone watch the Alliance tournament? Yeah. Some of them knew how to use Tech 3 cruisers there, right? Some not. So basically, as we will be able to go along, it will be interesting to follow the Tech 3 market, but I wouldn't expect that to be an interesting economic analysis until 9 months from now on, when we had basically a full year of production and implementation in the game. Now, total market activity. Now I really wish I had a pointer. Let's see if I can use this one. The blue line is number of transactions, the left axis. So on a weekly basis, we have here in 6008, about a year ago, about a 5. Excellent, thank you. About 5 million transactions per week, increasing roughly to 8 million towards May or June of this year. The weekly value is the red line, and you read off the right axis for the red line, peaking around 35 trillion ISK per week in trade. And this is only on the market. This is not trade directly between individuals. This is not contracts. This is only directly on the market. And then the green line here is the average ISK value per each transaction. And as you can see, it is relatively stable. And that's one thing that I've started to notice more and more in Eve, is that the economy has become so large that you need really radical changes in order to see changes in any average numbers. So you basically have numbers not moving much unless there's something big that happens. June 22nd, 2009 will be remembered for a long time. As you can see, on that day, something happened on the market. We saw a reduction in the number of transactions from about what it is, 8 million, roughly, a little bit more than 8 million, down to 7 million in a matter of days. And this was only happening because of the fact that we banned on this day 6,000 accounts and have since been banning other accounts. And it obviously impacted the market, and it obviously impacted the purchase behavior because the average value of transactions went down. No, that was when the operation against RMTs. This was the operation on Unholy Rage that we engaged in on June 22nd, going after macro miners and banning them in large numbers. So this is really what I wanted to focus on in terms of the rest of the presentation, because it has had a significant impact on various items within the game, even though it has not caused a general collapse in the economic system, as some people were afraid. But before we focus on that, the state of the economy, Well, Apocrypha was very successful. I think we can all agree to that, both in terms of content and in terms of market activity. We see the expansion economic cycle going on, but nothing significant. We see good growth. We see expansion hangovers, but nothing significant and as expected. It's time for you guys to prepare for Dominion. And we see the Unholy Rage impact. This is basically the story of 2009, what has happened. Take questions later. One quickly. Eric.
If you can give an example how you use the data looking into the past to project what will happen with item changes, items introduced in the future. Do you do projections or only read into the past?
In short, data like you saw earlier on the production data and so on, what happens is that the game designers, they need data in order to think about what kind of changes they want to do. So we provide them with data about what has happened, and they ask us, well, what could happen if we did this? And then we try to do some predictions based on that. We're not still at the stage of actually doing modeling on that, but that's something that I really would like to be able to do, to actually have modeling on economic behavior, so we could predict changes. From now on, it's more, this is what has happened, here's the story, this is according to the theory. Okay, you want to do this change? Go ahead. So, the state of the economy is good. So let's spend the rest of the time on Unholy Rates, or the economics of Unholy Rates. Unholy Rates, as I said earlier, was and is an operation against real money trading in ETH. Real money trading is basically when you buy ISK from a third party, which is a violation of the EULA and the terms of service. And if our GMs find out the activity, they take appropriate actions. And I sincerely do hope that all of you have not had that experience. But we have to ask ourselves, why does real money trade exist? And me as an economist, I always think in terms of incentives. So there is an incentive, obviously, in the system. These guys would not be offering ISK for sale if there's nobody that wanted to buy it. So it's a catch-22 thing. But why would we then go after it? Why is it bad that if people want to do something? And if we want to go after it, what is the best method to do so? These are kind of the questions I want to answer when I talk to you about the Unholy Rates. Now, before I do that, I want to take it one step further in terms of how we think about virtual economics. This is a graph I showed you last year, and it basically shows the ETH economy from an economic perspective with agents, trade between the agents, and then stuff coming in through the sinks. This would be missions, loot, rewards coming from the system, or if we would simply put money into the system, which we don't do. And then there are sinks, taxes that we take out, blueprints that we sell, skills book that we sell. These are all sinks that take money out of the system. So it goes in and it goes out and it gets traded here in between. This system is, however, closed. This is a closed system within a virtual world. Anything that is happening there, even though we talk about money going in and going out, it's only a pipeline that is basically going in a circle. And this is different from open design, such as Second Life or Project Entropia, that allows value to be put into the game and to be taken out of the game. We can look at it like this. On the left from my side here, on the end from your side as well. You can think about it as such. The money flows into the game, and it then gets circles around and increases in value or decreases if it's being blown up like an ETH. But there is value there that's being traded. And then in games like Second Life or Project Entropia, you can actually take that money out of the game. ETH, even though we have sinks and faucets and stuff flowing into the game, it goes in there and it stays in there, even though the circle is in between people. And this is a fundamental difference, and this is the reason why we go after the RMT guys. It's because they are basically using methods that are breaking this chain. And you guys do not want that to happen, because you tell us that. And we'll see soon why. And this doesn't really matter what kind of subscription model you're talking about. So in an open versus closed economy, open design allows for direct interaction between the virtual and the real world, which means that it can be difficult for the operator to imply specific rules. Second Life had to impose the rule that only commercial banks in real life can operate banks in Second Life. Now, what would be the fun in Eve if we had to do that? I mean, seriously, there would be no e-bank scandal. There would be no other scandals that are going around. Simply because within Eve, there are different sets of rules than in real life. I mean, if we want real life, sure, we can give you real life. Are you willing to pay your subscription for participating in real life? It's called taxes, I know, but... So my point being is that it can limit the gameplay, so we want to keep it closed. And you can have a microtransaction game that's still closed. Don't confuse those together. So I'm trying to get the point that we really want to keep Eve as a closed economy. And an open world requires directly exchange rates and therefore direct real valuation and all these problems that I mentioned earlier with Second Life. Project Entropia also had to introduce real-life banking into their game as a result of this. So why is RMT bad? It causes excessive hardware usage, believe it or not. But that's because of botting. It causes congestion in certain systems, spamming, impacts the market for individual items, as I will show you later on, breaks the balance for those items, in general impacts the gameplay in a negative way. This is the reason why we're going after the RMT. But notice, all of this that you see up there is not real money transaction. These are actions that those that are providing real money services are conducting within the game. So that's where the game-breaking parts comes. So what can then be done about it? Well, it's because there's demand. I'm an economist. I go by demand supply. If there's demand, let there be supply. It causes extra load on the system, as I said, so we really need to tackle this on two sides. We need a pincer movement, attacking the demand side and attacking the supply side. So what we did is that we formed a task force within CCP. This task force had the objective of analyzing behavior and identify parameters. It was an operation between the research and statistics team, the law and order team, and customer support, with support from various other units within CCP. We did a test run in March of 2009 when Apocrypha was launched, finding out that we had to hone our skills even better, and went back to the drawing board to try to understand what's going on. We banned about 3,000 accounts then. And then we had the operation starting on June 22nd, based on these behavior analysis that we had done. And so far, more than 18,000 accounts have been banned. But please note, it does not include trial accounts, which is a considerably higher number. And this does not mean we banned 18,000 players, because they try to come back into the game, the RMT elements, once we banned them out, once. So we cannot say you the number of individuals or individual players that we banned. It's the number of accounts that we banned. And here you can see how it's been ongoing. And since this is very secret, I'll just do like this. So this is the supply side. So we actually actively go after the guys that are spamming you. We go after the guys that are with this game-breaking behavior. But there is demand, as we said. And this is, we have PLEX entering the system. How many of you know now what PLEX is? Excellent. We thought we needed to get that message out there. How many of you have actually used PLEX? Okay, considerably fewer. But you know it's out there and you know why it's there, so I'll just skip this quickly. It's an in-game item created by the players, gives you time codes and so on that you turn into PLEX. And it allows you to buy your time code using in-game currency, effectively creating a market for time codes and game time. Yesterday, we saw Mossos Mihi in their tears of enjoyment seeing what Eve University has done. They gave them a present of 4 billion ISK in terms of items and so on. Now that's just a transaction from one entity to the other, acquired through regular gameplay. It doesn't really matter if it's items or currency. They're taking value and giving it between two entities in the game. And this happens on a daily basis. So what you are doing when you're exchanging time codes is that you are basically saying, I have time, I can play, I will earn a lot of in-game currency, you will get me some more time to play, and I will get you some money. That is the exchange. And this system will never explode beyond the demand or the supply that is needed at any time. If there is more demand for plexes than there is supply, the price will simply increase. If there is less demand, the prices will simply fall. So it's a self-balancing system in that sense. So what Eve does, Eve we all love, right? We have the Law and Order team standing there strong, defending versus the RMT. We put up Unholy Rage as one of the pincers. And then we compete with them on the demand side, basically minimizing the impact of RMT in game. So this is the thought that we have behind the Unholy Rage campaign and the PLEX system. And as you can see, it's functioning quite well. Here we have the in-game chart. We are seeing an increased trade activity throughout the period. And you don't see it on this one, but it's more than 600 per day on the average, approximately, plexes that are being traded. And often these are same plexes buying back and forth. Anyone here made money on buying and selling plex? See? I'm assuming you bought here and you sold here? Oh. Sorry, okay. But there's indication that this spike here might have been on speculative trading, and that this pattern here is around the infamous date of June. But how did it impact the market? Well, there are different types of RMT activity. We have mission runners, we have macro miners, we have macro ratters, and all of these impact the game in a different way. And therefore they affect different items, minerals, loot, and mission rewards. So let's just look quickly at each of these, a representative of each of these items and see what happens. Here is implants. They were heavily affected because they are a mission reward, basically, and showed us that the macro miners were actually mission runners more than anything else. You can see the average number traded here. It's a 30-day average number traded per each day. And here we have the infamous July 22nd. And the supply basically drops, and hence prices explode because the item is still needed within the game. So there you have a direct evidence of how the macro behavior or botting behavior can have direct impact on the market. Now, it doesn't break the market, really. The market is still functioning. It just shows us that the mission runners were providing the mission implants at a much lower price than the market could as a whole. The Raven. Anyone has a suspicion that Raven might be used in this? Well, that's a good question, yeah. You know, you don't really see a big spike here in June. Yeah, it drops a little bit, but it's a relatively low drop compared to previously. But prices actually increased to begin with of the Raven, and have since then, as prices on all battleships, been going down. So I think this is a combination of it. This is not only Unholy Rage. This is also the fact that we are seeing the expansion hangovers that I spoke to you about earlier. Less demand for high-level items. The Hulk, macro mining, well, nothing happened there. If you look at the market, here's June and July, relatively stable. So they were not using Hulks in any big quantities. Or did we not find them? That's a good question. Salvage material. If you're running missions, you are probably, as a mission writer, you're probably clearing out everything you can, including the salvage. And as we can see, salvage material started to increase in price right after July 22nd, and supply was reduced quite dramatically by maybe 15–20%. But then there was Apocrypha 1.5. And that's when we had the new rigs coming in, where you needed less material to build small and medium-sized rigs. And it turns out that that's what really the player wanted. They stopped buying the larger rigs. They need still a relatively high level of supply to produce those, so we're not seeing a lot of changes in the quantities, but the prices are dropping because each and every producer needs less. So in this case, a single gameplay balancing effect had more impact than the RMTs.
Did you project that for the devs?
Did we project this change as such? No, and we would not really, say it's going to be decreasing by X percentage at this point, as I said, because we don't have the models yet to do that. But we had discussions with them, and as such, this is a game balancing thing. This is not an economy thing. I mean, the game designers, they will always want to rebalance things. They want to make it interesting for you guys. And in those cases, I don't step in and say, no, you don't do that, unless I think it's really, really stupid. But I leave the gameplay up to the game designers. And in this case, they felt that you needed small rigs. Was that a bad choice? You see, it was a good choice. And as such, it has impact on the market because it's a player-driven market, once again. So we do not try to say, we want this price or we want that price. There is no correct price. There is no fair price. There is only the price that you guys negotiate at any given day. And as you can see on this graph, it fluctuates on a daily basis, and it fluctuates around changes. Cydrine, sorry. Well, there is a little bit of an impact around June 22nd, but it seems to be relatively low, and prices are relatively stable. Pirate, a much bigger impact there. Now, were the macro miners going out there mining only scorodite and pyroxys? It looked the other way around when I was flying around, and I found a lot of belts with no wellspad, but only scorodite and pyroxys in them. Anyone had that experience? Mm-hmm. So this is either through the loot through the refining of loot, or other aspects that we don't have a full understanding of on how they were impacting the pirate supply. But you can obviously see a drop in the supply and prices increases around this infamous date of June 22nd, which will be remembered like June 6th in real life. It will be remembered in EVE forever. Tritanium. Are you guys ready? Good. So I'll see you then. Now, what is going on there? June 22nd. Not much happened. What happened in game? Send me a one comment or two this summer with regard to mining in HiSec. Belts respawn daily. You're seeing a lot more Weldspar.
Yeah, they respawn.
Okay. Much larger. Bigger, better, there's more of it. stockpiles, and this is, of course, the result that we banned all the macro miners. Right? Maybe. Well, if we had banned all the macro miners, something should have happened on the market, right? Maybe. Or maybe this. Yep, they most certainly did, but around the same time we also increased the respawn rate and the reseeding rate. And this was, of course, unannounced, as all major changes are when they affect the economy. And you guys have to figure it out. But since this will be published in the quarterly economic newsletter that we are working on and will be published by late October, early November, we decided to give it to you guys here at Fanfest. And since this is taped, the information will go out to the rest of the public very soon. That I cannot tell you. That is still considered to be industry secret. So this is something that you guys have to figure out. But the respawn and the reseed rates in HiSec for Wellspar were changed. That's basically it. So you have to figure out the rest. And as you can see, that had an impact on the titanium prices and has recently resulted, if you look here at the data, has recently resulted in an increased trade while prices are still decreasing. And as from a game balancing perspective, this was exactly the effect that the game designers were looking for. They wanted Wellspar to be more easily available for the regular HiSec player. And they achieved their result. As an economist, I might have an opinion on that or not, but for the game design perspective, it is perfectly normal to want to change the relative scarcity. I'll take questions in a few minutes.
Very quick one. Did you get feedback from Kriba on this?
That one I wouldn't answer. So, in the end, what are we talking about here? Unholy Rage impact. Sure, macro mining has an impact on EVE, and we have seen it with Unholy Rage that we can really deal with it, both from the supply side and from the demand side. But it was more or less on certain items, not necessarily game-breaking, not at all game-breaking, but not necessarily having a big impact on the economy overall. And we have seen that game balancing changes, they actually have bigger impact than the RMT operations seem to have. And what it tells me in the end is that the EVE economy has become so big that it can easily fight off any rapid changes in the parameters of the game. You guys will notice that and you will make decisions right away. Just as you told me before I told you what had happened, you realized there was something going on in HiSec because you saw more of it, you saw more Wellspar around. It was available in more quantities. And I know for sure that you have made your decisions based on that information. But yes, RMT is a monster to be fought, and that we can only do with the help of you guys. If you don't buy it, they don't exist. That's as easy as that. We try to do our part the best we can. We go through our spamming systems, trying to catch them, and we hope to be able to curb that even better in the future. We look at their activity and remove them from the game as fast as we can, using the knowledge that we have gained over the past years fighting this, and with our new databases and our new analysis, we are able to hit them harder and faster than before. And here are some graphs for you, because I know you love graphs. But these are from the Unholy Rates blog, and dev-blog, which was written by Grimmy, GM Grimmy, who was the lead on behalf of the Law and Order team. And what this is basically showing us is the CPU per user. So average CPU per user is the purple line here. And the green area is basically showing us the peak users at any given day. And as you can see, we banned about 6,000 accounts. That's about 2% of the population. And CPU per user went down by 25 to 30%. So, Ingun. Yeah, we found one system that they used to be in. But overall, less. The market distortion were relatively minor, and the market was impacted by maybe 10%, 10, 15%. And oddly enough, that's the same number as economists have said that the underground economy is in any Western world, estimated around 10 or 15%. Oddly enough. So, what does the future behold? What's going on? Well, Dominion, guys, get ready. There are going to be sovereignty changes, and we have deadblocks out there already on these issues, so you should be reading them carefully, trying to predict what will happen. I have no idea how this got in there. I've never flown a Titan. I probably never will fly a Titan. I can hardly tell you who is shooting whom, but from what I understand from the PvP in the group, this is very exciting. And I can agree, blowing up Titans is definitely exciting. But this is taken from our test servers, so this is something that you can already see on the test servers, and you can already read about this in another deadblock that's out there. I expect continued growth. And why I say that is based on the experience we had since the infamous crash last fall of the real-life economy. CCP has not been affected at all. We are growing faster than ever. We are seeing subscriber numbers increase faster than ever, dandling around the 300,000 subscriber mark. We really want to get to 318,000 and something. I can't recall what it is, but that's the number of inhabitants in Iceland. You know, we will send out a big deadblock when we finally reach the population of Iceland. And in terms of the global presence, we are not seeing decreased interest in EVE. If anything, we see an increased interest in EVE. So we are not affected in any way except positively by this global crisis, and there is no reason to think that that will happen in 2010. So based on these two observations, we know we have expansions coming out, we get exciting stuff, plus Dust 514. And you guys are going to be seeing a lot of that on this Fanfest, spread the word. And remember, it's not only an awesome first-person shooter, which it will of course be, but it's the connection that we will have with EVE. And it will make the EVE brand more acknowledged, which, in my opinion, will bring us more EVE players. Or for you guys, more newbies to rip off some money. So, this is going to be your year, guys. 2010 is going to be a good year, just as 2009 has been a good year. And we can basically take one more step into the forever future of EVE. So now I'm ready for questions. Yeah, I'm not ready to manage all these questions. If you can test one in the back, you first, one gentleman that stood up, see if you can hear you. Well, if they're more difficult to track or not is not really that I can comment on, because then I would be giving out too much information. But in general, when you are able to crack an illegal activity, they will try to find another outlet. And it simply creates another challenge for us. And I have full faith in this task force that we have set up, that their knowledge of the game and the knowledge of our backend system will be enough for us to fight this. So, but if you see something like that, and as always, if you feel that there's something that should be taken a closer look into, file a petition. There's a specific category for that. More questions? One here and then one in the back.
I have been living in the Indian area for months, and at first, RMT patterns were really simple, industrials, autopilots, strange names. But since August, I spotted several enhancements in the patterns, and I do it as a player. And I wonder if you plan to involve more players in that, other than petition, because it's really boring to. We need it. We do it. It's very boring to spend time on spotting guarantees and macro nationals.
Yeah. So if I understand you correctly, the fact that you feel that they're coming back and you have to increase the number of petitions that you're filing?
Not increase, but we.
Well, it's just if it's easier when you block somebody, instead move down a couple more options and say report as spammer or something. Like
Yes, yeah. Yeah, just in general. I mean, guys, I'm an economist. I can't comment on backend systems and game design, but I know that this has been discussed and the ways in order to do it. And there are members on my team that have a keen interest in making that sure that this becomes more easily available. One question there in the back. Toyota.
You were speaking in reference to the effect after Unholy Rage.
Excuse me, guys, could you, excuse me? Yes?
You were speaking in regard to the effect on ships. You mentioned specifically the Hulk, I believe, of the effect it had on it. Do you have any more statistics on different mining ships? Was there an increased drop in supply or demand for?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking at cruise missiles, you see a huge drop in demand for those, and therefore drop in price.
What was there anything else noticeable that really dropped in supply or
Yeah, Machinos. We were looking at Machinos. There was not a big change in Machinos, were there? Yeah. Freyr, you looked at those numbers. Yeah, I think I saw them in your graph. Now, the Machinos, they were not big changes, but definitely we've been looking through a lot of items, and those are the items that I found most representative and most interesting. But there are plenty of other items, definitely. Gentleman in the red, which is from CCP. No, there's another C there.
First, a comment. Do you have bigger difficulty tracking the contract market than you have the normal game market? Because you are speaking a lot about the Unholy Rage connected to the normal market, while if you look at the contract markets, the faction markets, RNA, energies, adaptives, Raven, Navy, ships, they've actually tripled in price since Unholy Rage, which is a much bigger difference than the effect on the normal market.
Yep. And the answer to that simple is that it's more difficult, yes, for us to track time series of that, but we can see what's going on in general. And yeah, we can confirm that has changed. Any other question as well, or? One there and there. Oh, sorry. Okay, so take one here, there, and then over there.
What about Tech 2 BPUs?
What about the?
BPUs, Tech 2.
Yeah, what about them?
Hammerheads, Hobgoblins, what about it? Will it stay in the game?
Oh, you're talking about originals versus copies.
No, the originals.
Yes, and you're wondering if they will be Tech 2 originals in the game too?
No, the problem is there are people who have originals and
Yep.
they can produce to a really low price. And
Yeah. So is your question, are we going to remove them? Or
how is it balanced?
yeah. So you're basically saying it's a bad thing. There are people with a monopoly situation and be able to. It's unfair, yeah. Okay. I think you got your answer there. But in short, there is a huge debate on this after my last QEN devlog, and I think it's about 3 or 4 pages just on that issue, and it brings forward really all the points. If you acquire something through legal gameplay, why should you have to give it up? That's those that I acquired originally. If you're able to buy it with money that you earned in a legal and honestable fashion, being a pirate or something, still legal, why would you then have to give it up? If you are earning your money by tech to production, why should you pay high prices for copies of something that you would want to have an original for? You know, I could have replaced tech to originals with Icelandic fish quotas, and this would have been exactly the same questions. What is fair, what is not fair? That is not for an economist to answer. If it's done through legal gameplay, the way the system was designed originally and then changed, sorry, that's life. Compete, produce more. Harden the fuck up and do it, but what?
You spoke briefly about the future outlook, the impact from Dominion. I expect that one of the biggest economic impacts is going to be the changes to distortion and moon mining and the minerals and the prices impacting that. What's your team's thoughts and projections on the imbalancing effect of the Dominion changes in that regard?
That is just something we cannot comment on because it would be too controversial at this point.
But do you expect the changes to be significant, perhaps the way some of us are thinking about them?
I would put it this way, watch the devlogs closely. We will have devlogs coming out about on this issue in the next few weeks, and watch them very, very closely. That's the only thing I can comment on. Yeah, the one in the striped shirt.
Okay, so PLEXes, yeah, they go down in price to the point where it's not economical for people to buy it, you know, by using real money to buy it. They're only getting, say, $100 back. So they go back to buying discs from outside. Are you going to cap the PLEX prices so that
No.
you get to the point where
Well, no.
you're just not buying the PLEX?
One of our basic rule is that we do not mingle with the prices at any time. We don't go there and make the correct price. If that would happen, you would stop selling it. You would stop offering plastics. You and $1,000 will do so, and the price will increase again. It's a, as I said earlier, demand and supply thing. I have a full faith in the market and you guys. Well, market first and then you.
Sell them those little pulse rifles.
Are we seeing? Are we seeing a market opportunity here? Once again, I have to tell you, I'm not a game designer. It's an awesome idea that you mentioned there, and Eve and Dust is all about interactivity. But I would like to add this though. This is a new venture that we are heading into. It's never been done before. And I would tend to think it would start on a smaller scale and then increase over time. Just as Eve has been increasing over the past 6 years, and we're only in the beginning stages of Eve. There's so much thing we still have to do with Eve. So think of it as a long-term project. One question here, and then here and there. How are you doing on time? Well, I got plenty of time. You guys might want to have a beer or something, but we've got 1 minute left, so 3 questions. I'll take one here, one there, and then up in the back. You talk to me just afterwards.
Is the economy team looking at digging into tracking and analyzing contracts, or is that a Pandora's box you guys just are not able to?
No, absolutely. That's on our horizon. If we were a producing team, we would say that's in our backlog. Guys, 2 questions left. If you keep quiet while you leave, please. I really can't hear you. If you could please speak up.
Are you going to finally get rid of the last NC only juice stuff, like you got with the
We can say that the NPC stuff that we still have in game are in many aspects used as ISK sinks. So I'm not foreseeing that we will get rid of that simply due to that fact. It's always a estimation of exactly which item, but in general those are our sinks, our way of getting money out of the system. And one final question, gentleman in the back.
One item I've always noticed that's on the market for a unreasonable price seems to be harvester mining drones. Those things can get up to 50 million a piece. I've even used them as a stock of some sorts. Would you have any idea why they seem to be up that high?
Absolutely no clue. No clue. Well, in general, rarity, but 50 million? I mean, more like that, collector's item, something that you really want to have. Yeah. So, in short, I would say that when you see prices that do not match the mineral content and do not match the supply in the area, there's some kind of vanity thing to it, some kind of collector's thing. Okay, but let's call this enough for today. Thank you all for coming and looking forward to the communication over the next year. Thank you.